Hello, people. I did finish a book. I'm in Florida still. I got some kind of fucking Florida sinus infection. And this shit may kill me. Feels like it's gonna kill me. Uh, the Influence of Sea Power Upon History. And this was a book that I kind of had to read. It's by Mahan. It's a book that always gets referenced. You know, if you're reading about Trafalgar, if you're reading about Nelson, if you're reading really any kind of naval history, they're gonna quote this guy. So I had to read it. My wife bought me this book. She just typed away on the little magic box, and a few days later it came to the door. This is not, we kind of thought that this was a first edition at first, but this book originally came out in 1890. This edition came out in 1894, and it says right here, 8th edition. Now, I've got some names that are signed into this thing. The one guy's name is Bamford. Another guy's name is Fletcher. There's Bamford again. And they're all in the U.S. Army. Fletcher used kind of a braille, like a stamp, to put his name on a few pages in a row. And Bamford also had a stamp, but it wasn't that braille thing. So I have a feeling that this was required reading. I haven't tried to investigate who Fletcher and Bamford were. But I have a feeling that around the turn of the century that this was required reading. I also have a feeling that neither one of them read this book, because when I got near the last 3/4 of it, I was finding those pages that are still stuck together, and you gotta cut them apart with scissors. Mahan, we already talked about the published date. This is 541 pages. It took me a long time to read. It took me a couple weeks to read this thing. It's got kind of small print, not too bad. It had some very nice fold-out maps. Got soup boiling over here, so that's why I keep looking over to the right. But the names on the maps, the names of ports and islands, were so small that I could hardly read them. Page 35. I had never done any reading, any naval history, I better turn that down, in the 1600s. Very little anyway, let's put it that way. Page 35. Middle of the bottom paragraph. The Dutch, in 1667, found little difficulty in ascending the Thames and burning a large fraction of the English navy within sight of London. And that sentence just kind of knocked me for a loop, because it's like Britannia rule the waves and all of that stuff. But they had 3 wars in a row with the Dutch. And there was some really great big battles. One of them is called the 4-Day Battle. And the only admiral that comes out of those wars with any distinction is a Dutchman. His name is De Ruyter, Ruyter. It was very interesting, and I thought, that son of a bitch is only going to give me that sentence and nothing else. But no, they later on, they went into it much better. My note here says 6-page paragraph, because I like to stop. I will turn the page, and I'll stop on the left-hand page at the end of a paragraph. But you can't hardly stop when somebody's paragraph runs on for 6 pages. Bottom of 131, top of 132. consequence of this economical theory of carrying on a war, the Grand Pensionary of Holland, De Witt, who had the year before caused soundings of the Thames to be made, sent into the river, under De Ruyter, a force of 60 or 70 ships of the line, which on the 14th of June, 1667, went up as high as Gravesend, destroying ships at Chatham and in the Midway, and taking possession of Sheerness. The light of the fires could be seen from London, and the Dutch fleet remained in possession of the mouth of the river until the end of the month. Under this blow, following as it did upon the Great Plague and the Great Fire of London, Charles consented to peace, which was signed on July 31st, 1667, and is known as the Peace of Breda. The most lasting result of the war was the transfer of New York and New Jersey to England, thus joining her northern and southern colonies in North America. And of course, New York and New Jersey belonged to the Dutch. Staten Island, Staten back in those days was spelled with two A's right in a row, because the Dutch are kind of funny that way. James II in Londonderry. James II was the King of England, but he was Catholic, and nobody, a lot of the country did not like that. They didn't like it so much that they invited a Dutch guy to come over and be the king. James II retired to Ireland, where there was a lot of Catholics, and I don't know, I'm going to have to find a book on James II, because I'm at sea, so to speak, with that history. In Londonderry, there was like a long siege there in Londonderry. Page 210, near the middle. To 10 near the middle, this was indeed tying the hands of the sea powers, but Rooke at last, chafing at the humiliating inaction, and ashamed to go home without doing something, decided to attack Gibraltar for 3 reasons. Because he heard it was insufficiently garrisoned, because it was of infinite importance as a port for the present war, and because its capture would reflect credit on the Queen's arms. The place was attacked, bombarded, and then carried by an assault in boats. The English possession of Gibraltar dates from August 4th, 1704, and the deed rightly keeps alive the name of Rooke, to whose judgment and fearlessness of responsibility England owes the key to the Mediterranean. If you've ever wondered why England owns the Rock of Gibraltar, there it is. And I have often wondered that, and now I know. Page 232. The successor to the English throne, this is after James II, all of that is over. The successor to the English throne, the German George I, though undoubtedly the choice of the English people, was far from being their favorite, and was rather endured as a necessary evil, giving them a Protestant instead of a Roman Catholic king. They would rather have a German than a Catholic. That's how crazy, the whole Spain and England. England ended up later on being predominantly Protestant, and it's like still going on in Ireland. They would rather have a German king, and all the Georges were. 409 to 410. This is where some of the pages are a little bit ripped up because they were still stuck together. Having carried out their orders for the summer cruise, the combined fleets returned to Cadiz. On the 10th of September, they sailed hence for Algeciras on the opposite side of the bay from Gibraltar to support a grand combined attack by land and sea, which, it was hoped, would reduce to submission the key to the Mediterranean, With the ships already there, the total rose to nearly 50 ships of the line. And when they talk about the combined fleets, they're talking about France and Spain. They on paper it was gave them a lot of ships of the line, but they could never, coordinate things. And the Spanish actually were just terrible. I mean, at one time they were a big superpower, but by this time, this is the American Revolutionary War. By this time, and when I say the Revolutionary War, it's those years. There was a lot of other warfare going on, which it was hoped would reduce the submission the key to the Mediterranean. With the ships already there, the total rose to nearly 50 ships of the line. The details of the mighty onslaught scarcely belong to our subject, yet cannot be wholly passed by without at least such mention as may recognize and draw attention to their interest. I read a book just titled Gibraltar, and if you ever wondered why the English were a little bit preoccupied and why they didn't do better in the Revolutionary War, it's because they had a lot on their plate. And at that time, the French fleet equaled the English fleet, and the French actually had a couple of admirals. This guy's name was Suffren. They had a couple of admirals that were pretty good, and so they did not want to lose Gibraltar. I mean, they did not want to lose the American colonies either, but I think if they had the choice, they would rather hang on to Gibraltar because that was nearer to home, and they had to divide all their forces, and and they made some pretty big blunders in the War of Independence too. Thanks for watching. I'm almost done with another book.